Today, we're going to dig into a really pivotal moment in American history, one that chances are you've probably never even heard of.
So let me ask you something. When you think of the landmark case that ended school segregation in the US, what's the first name that pops into your head?
Yeah? I'm guessing most of you probably said Brown versus Board of Education, right? From 1954. And for good reason. I mean, that's the one we all learn about in history class, the huge case that desegregated schools across the whole country. But what if the story didn't actually start there? What if I told you a crucial fight was won 8 years before that? A fight that really set the stage for everything to come. Okay, so let's dive into this. That case, the one before Brown, is Mendez versus Westminster. It happened back in 1946, and believe me, it absolutely paved the way. Now, to really get what this case was all about, we gotta go beyond the legal stuff. We have to look at the human story. And it all starts with one little girl. Her name was Sylvia Mendez. And in 1944, in Orange County, California, she was turned away from a white school. Just denied entry. Why? Because the school district said that school was only for white kids. And Sylvia was of Mexican descent. So instead, Sylvia was told she had to go to the so-called Mexican school. And look at the difference here. The white school, a really well-kept campus, good resources. The Mexican school, a rundown shack, basically. We're talking inferior facilities, not nearly the same quality of education. This wasn't separate but equal by any stretch of the imagination. It was just separate and completely unequal. But Sylvia's parents, Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez, well, they weren't having it. They absolutely refused to accept this, they knew it was wrong, and they decided they were going to fight back. And here's the thing, they didn't do it alone. The Mendez family got together with 4 other families who were in the exact same boat, and together they filed a lawsuit against the school districts. So what was their argument? It was actually pretty straightforward, but so powerful. They said that segregating kids just because of their Mexican heritage violated their constitutional right to equal protection under the law, right there in the 14th Amendment. And you know what? In 1946, they won. A federal judge sided with them. This was huge. I mean, think about it. This was the very first time a federal court had ever struck down school segregation. Ever.
Okay, so this is where the story gets even bigger. This wasn't just some local California case anymore. It started to get national attention, including from a certain young lawyer who was about to become a legal legend. Yep, that lawyer was Thurgood Marshall. At the time, he was the lead attorney for the NAACP, and he saw just how important the Mendez case was. So he filed what's called an amicus curiae brief. It literally means friend of the court. It's a way for someone who isn't directly involved in a case to provide expertise and additional arguments. And that's exactly what he did to support the Mendez family. And this is really the key part of the story. You see, by getting involved in Mendez, Marshall was basically able to test drive the legal arguments he wanted to use on a national level. He argued that segregation itself violated the 14th Amendment, and when the court in California agreed, bam, he had a precedent. He now had a proven legal strategy, a building block that he would use just a few years later to win the big one, Brown versus Board of Education. So this was so much more than just one court case. The courage of the Mendez family and the other families, it created this ripple effect through history, a ripple we're still feeling. So let's break it down. Why does this case matter so much? Well, for starters, it ended school segregation in California way before the rest of the country. It literally gave Thurgood Marshall the legal blueprint for Brown v. Board. And maybe the biggest takeaway of all, it proved that just regular families can stand up and completely change the course of history. It shows that the fight for equality is built one step, one family at a time. And that legacy is still going strong. Sylvia Mendez, that little girl who was turned away from the schoolhouse door, she's an adult now, and she travels all over the country sharing her family's story, making sure this incredible piece of history doesn't get forgotten. You know, this whole massive, history-changing journey started with one small act of courage. A family just saying, no, this isn't right for our child. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What's a small act of courage we could take today that might create a ripple for tomorrow?